Ah, the first breath is always the most important breath of the experience. Good morning. This is Robert Phoenix, and if you are in the vicinity of a speaker or headphone and you're hearing my voice, you're now listening to the Friday F.A.R cast, and I welcome you for your presence and even your participation if we decide to open the phones and have you call in a little bit later. We've got some guests today. We've got Dr. Hildegarde Staninger, who will be joining me in just a few minutes. We'll be talking about her work and her latest book, Portals to Destiny, which I have in my hand in front of me. It is not a very big book. It is I would call it almost a pamphlet in some ways, but it is a very interesting book, and it's based on the art of Mr. Rick Dubov, and he did a series of paintings that are portals, and there are red portals, and there are dark portals, and there are black indigo portals. It's interesting stuff, and people that have read this book are apparently experiencing some very interesting changes in their lives. So we're going to talk to Dr. Hildegarde Staninger in just a few minutes, and we'll talk about her work, and we'll talk about this book, Portals to Destiny. In the second hour of the show, we're going to have Michael Lee Hill on, and Michael is he is I can see that you could call him a UFO experiencer. He lives in the Lake Erie area around Cleveland, and he has an intuitive relationship, it seems, with UFOs. I wouldn't say he's able to summon them, but when he goes outside and takes his camera, they show up. And according to Michael Lee Hill, they seem to have kind of an interactive relationship with him. And he's been on Coast to Coast, and he's been on Red Ice Creations, I believe. So Michael is starting to make waves in the UFO world. He's also a musician, and I'll play one of his tracks later on the show. He's a very talented guitarist, and maybe we can talk about the UFO and creative convergence. So, in a lot of places on Friday, they have Casual Friday, right? I mean, I'm sure that, people out there who are working or have worked have experienced Casual Friday. I have my own version of it here in my home studio, and I call it Naked Friday, and I do my show naked. I bet you didn't know that. Every Friday, I sit in front of my computer screen with not a shred of clothing on. So, no, I'm just kidding. I am wearing clothing. But I'm trying to think if I've ever done the show naked. I think I might have done the show naked one time. This is truth. It's one of those things that you have to do at least once, right? I mean, doing a show, I had to do it at least one time. And you didn't know about it, so it's not a big deal, right? And it's the privacy of my own home, and I can be naked in my own home. Last time I checked. I've driven naked too before, by the way. And I did it again. I was in my youth. I'm not a naked freak. Okay, I don't run around and I don't go to nudist colonies or nude beaches. Although I have been to a nude beach, but I was a kid and I decided one night, it was late at night, I dropped my girlfriend off and I was naked. I just didn't feel like putting my clothes on, so I drove home naked. But today I'm fully clothed Friday. I just put a new post up on my website. I did that yesterday. And it's about Rashard Mendenhall. Rashard Mendenhall plays running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Rashard Mendenhall has a Twitter account, and he tweeted on, I believe it was on Monday, he started a tweet about how America celebrating the death of Osama bin Laden was kind of barbaric. And I agree with him, to be honest with you. I mean, I agree with him. On some level, I can understand why people do it, mostly because they're frustrated. That's what I think. And people need something to hang their hat on and feel good about. And there's all this frustration. People don't have a job. Economy sucks. There's just more and more confusion and chaos and strife and disorder. And people needed to have a hang your hat on moment. But come on now. Our culture never used to be like that. Never. We had a lot more decorum, and we had a lot more grace and a lot more civility, and we've lost touch with that. And he was talking about that. But he was also questioning whether or not they really got Osama bin Laden. And he also questioned 9/11. Now, if you're a professional athlete and sports culture in general, you don't do that, because if you do, your ass is grass. You are out on the street. If you're marginal, if you're good, you'll have you'll have a chance to quote unquote redeem yourself. Now, Rashard Mendenhall, let's say Rashard Mendenhall played for the Oakland Raiders. He'd still catch a lot of flack. But the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers is Art Rooney II. And Art Rooney II was a very large campaign contributor to the Barack Obama campaign. He was running for president. And there's a rule in pro football called the Rooney Rule, which was established by Art Rooney to make sure that quote-unquote minority candidates get interviewed for coaching and general management positions. I think the rule is a farce. I think it's a sham. I think if a team wants to hire somebody who is black, white, pink, brown, or yellow, it's their prerogative. And what happens is that let's say the Oakland Raiders wanted to go out and hire John Gruden. Of course, they did at one point. So let's say they wanted to hire him, and that was their guy, and they had him targeted all along. He might even be on the staff. Let's say he was an offensive assistant, like a quarterback's coach or offensive coordinator. The way the Rooney Rule is set up is that the Raiders would have to interview a quote-unquote minority candidate. And the minority candidate doesn't even have a shot. But they have to abide by the letter of the law and the rule. Of course, this was not the case when the Miami Dolphins were courting Jim Harbaugh last year and flew all the way across the country, even when they still had their own coach was still employed by them, and they were not doing any kind of Rooney ruling on that. But I guess at the end of the day, it's about getting people experience in the interview process and getting the name in the press. I understand it. Look, it may have been good for a while. I think we can move beyond the Rooney Rule in sports. One man's opinion. Back to Rashard Mendenhall. He plays for the Steelers, and Art Rooney is very connected. He's now the ambassador to Ireland. So I'm sure he got a call. Now, here's the deal with Rashard Mendenhall and pro football in general. These guys don't have a contract. They have no contract with the NFL, so theoretically, there's nothing the Pittsburgh Steelers can do or the NFL can do about what he said. And he said it during a kind of a down time. But he's getting blowback, and the sports world is a very conservative world. Very conservative. The United States Army is one of the largest, it is, I think, the largest advertiser in the NFL, period, end of story. So Champion is an apparel manufacturer, and Rashard Mendenhall had a deal with Champion, but they've cut him loose. He no longer represents Champion based on his comments. So anyway, if you want to, you can go to my website, robertphoenix.com, and you can read my latest post about Rashard Mendenhall. I'm also, believe it or not, in a fundraising drive because I need a new hard drive for my computer. My computer is dying. So if you listen to this program or you read my blog, and I know that there are folks out there who subscribe to my newsletter and have gotten readings and have supported what I do, and I thank you, and I'm grateful for all your support, both emotionally and financially. But if you enjoy the programming, please go to my website. I've got a donate button on the top right-hand corner, and anything you feel like contributing to this program is greatly appreciated and would go to being able to continue to do this program with a new hard drive for my computer. So that's it. That's the housekeeping business. Got that out of the way. So without further ado, she's been waiting patiently on this line. I know she has. Let's bring on Dr. Hildegarde Staninger and talk to her, find out more about what she's doing, her book, and her new role as a radio announcer like me on Michael Edwards' Living Light Network program. We're going to talk to her about that as well. So let's bring her around without further ado. Hello, Dr. Hildegarde Staninger. How are you?
I am fine, Robert, and thank you very much for having me on your show. and letting the audience know, our listeners, what I'm doing now in my own little radio show. I think a lot of information needs to get out, and it needs to be truthful. So I appreciate being on your show. Thank you.
Well, you certainly have a lovely voice, so I think you'll be a slam dunk on the radio side of things.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, should I call you Hildegarde, Hildy?
Hildy, Dr. Hildy. That'll be fine.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your past. Now, your name came across my radar screen for the first time, I think, around 2007, when the Morgellons experience was happening in a very big way. And to be honest with you, I've experienced Morgellons symptoms, and so when I found, when I did my searches and all that stuff, I came across your name and figured out that you were there, you were at the forefront, and you were trying to figure out what was going on with Morgellons and chemtrails and the connection between the two. And can we talk about that a little bit and kind of where you are?
Sure. Like as a quick summary. Back then, that was in 2007 when, as you said, my name came across your radar. And in 2006, I participated in an independent, private-funded study to identify what were the fibers, in particular the blue fibers, in people that had Morgellons at that time. And in this, we found that it was a 2-part polyester resin. It had a silicone head, and also matched, because I had 2 separate samples, one from Redondo Beach, one from Long Beach, and then one from Texas. It matched a chemtrail sample. Thus, in the professional opinion, it had to be from an aerial exposure, initial exposures. And then further studies showed that those matched half of the chemical composition of what was being done in Italy at that time, meaning this was now in 2007, 2008. So there is definitely an aerial emission factor, and thus whatever falls out of the air falls onto the land and can get into other tributaries, meaning water sources, into plants, food, etc. this way. During that time, though, because prior to that I was working with a number of Korean companies in reference to F.A.R. infrared, so I was very familiar with nanotechnology, etc. this way, as compared to other scientists at that time from other disciplines, my discipline being industrial toxicology. And so I was familiar with terms in that field, and in that, once we identified what it was, then was able to make the association with advanced nanomaterials. Advanced nanomaterials have grown since 1980 and started in research bases, privately, governmentally, and all different kinds of funding involved in that type of research. But at the same time, that now they're used in commercial applications. The precedent at that time was that these materials were so small that they should not be a threat to the environment, to the human health, or anything. What basically happened on the regulatory side, it was placed through the system of approval for these new compounds, new substances, etc., without having any toxicology studies. And the original toxicology studies that were showing even initiation cancer or anything was done by Dr. Gotti out of, I believe it was the University of Rome. And this was in end of 2006, early 2007. Now there is my publisher for the Comprehensive Handbook of Hazardous Materials, which was my leading environmental book, which was an international bestseller, but at the same time, it's used in every hazardous materials operation, and also part of the Hazard Communication Standard reference is in the revised Hazard Communication Standard. Right to Know in there, it was determined that there was no guidelines or anything. So a lot happened, meaning the science community, the environmental, the engineering, etc., the multiple different disciplines woke up. But at the same time, these materials are now used in medicines, gene therapies, coatings, the same materials that I found in Morgellons individuals. Those two-part polyester resins are also used in pre-treating of the cells for stem cells. They're used as tags being how to identify who is the manufacturer or, who created it, because you need some kind of identity, which is called, correct term is molecular brand. I currently have now isolated some nasal, what is called mesogens, and it's comparative between Los Angeles, New York, and the Middle East, and they all match the same analysis. And that report will be coming out between now and June. So if that helps you a little bit, that's the nutshell.
Yeah. So where are we now with Morgellons? I mean, people have been theoretically dealing with this since, at least as far as I know, around 2006, 2007. This is when Mary Latow went public with her organization, and Dr. Randy Wymore came onto the scene and started doing his work. So now we're, 4 or 5 years into this. Where are people now with it? Is it progressing? What's happening with the complex that we know as Morgellons?
I can't speak for any individual researchers or professional groups outside of the groups that I'm associated with, but I can say this was what was, I'm going to call it public information. An independent study was supposed to be funded and done through Kaiser Permanente, which was completed, I believe, in the end of 2009 or early 2010. I think it was 2009, though, and it was turned over to the military, meaning the Army, and no report was released.
And the amount of money that they spent on that was a pittance. It was $1 million. Right, and you can't really generate a serious research program for $1 million. Am I correct in that assumption?
If you want to milk it, you can. Look what we did with the shoestring budget and found out that it was, and we didn't even have shoes. We found out what it was.
Right.
Meaning, using Raman technology. Yes, the Raman technology analysis might be expensive because it wasn't state of the art at that time. I mean, it was beyond state of the art, but you were never wrong. It was 100% accurate, and you can find what you want to find or not find what you want to find. The other thing is, if you use a comparison of that $1 million budget to what was spent in finding it versus the millions of dollars of budget it was used in developing and researching advanced nanomaterials, meaning to create those entities, it's quite different,
Right,
meaning
right.
It's like 50 million and beyond. I mean, just in hospitals that are using that technology, some of the grants that are given in different agencies, 215 million they start out per year. So there can be a lot of budget in it. It's a very big industry. But to answer your question, too, after that, some private companies were looking at developing different sensors to look at it. And then, funding and everything along that line came about, or not came about. In other words, they didn't get the funding to complete the working models.
So are there still legions of quote-unquote Morgellons sufferers with, the external symptoms of the lesions and the extruding of the fibers, or has that abated and are more of the symptoms internal now? Has the complex literally gone underground in the body? What's your take on that?
No, it always was internal.
Right.
So
okay.
what experienced on the skin was basically the non-binding or what was the body rejecting it internally. It always did what I said originally, went to the kidney, to the small intestine, intestinal tract, and the upper bronchial area. And the other thing with this is that at that time, those were 1- and 2-dimensional, going into 3-dimensional nanomaterials or advanced materials. Now, the 3-dimensional can be 8 layers thick, and it's thin film. There's a lot of advances that have been occurring that are now coming about. So what I'm trying to say to you, Robert, it's the same version is not the same what it was 5 years ago as what is now. And these materials are being used in a lot of commercial available products now.
Interesting. Do you feel like that the population were guinea pigs, so to speak?
I don't know. It's anything goes right now.
Yeah. If somebody had the internal symptoms as well as the external symptoms, what course of action would you recommend? I know that you've been an advocate of the F.A.R. infrared sauna experience, which I had my first one last week, by the way, and it was terrific.
Mm-hmm. Good.
What would you suggest for folks?
Yeah, I recommend Radiant Heat in particular. I've always used the MPS products by MPS Global because it made pure F.A.R. infrared, and what my whole goal within detox and giving back that life force was to have a piece of equipment that did not have may have a human push a button, but not interfere with that field, so that the body could generate its own radiant heat, absorb it, generate its own radiant heat, and then start expelling the toxins. And at the same time, with many of these materials, they're coated in a silane, S-I-L-A-N-E, and a siloxane base compound, and that compound is a nitrogen, ammonium ion, meaning an NH4, and the other polymer with it, the other plastic residue polymers. And what happens is it acts it sends out like an electricity, and it like shocks you because it's designed to kill bacteria as like an antimicrobial agent, those compounds are. But when you have it in your body and it's not supposed to be in your body, it starts killing off your natural flora, etc. That's why, back to your question, is what should you use? F.A.R. infrared, oxygen, also a good GI cleanse, so that it cleans out the membrane, the natural membrane within the body, so that you can regenerate a good GI tract and getting the enzymes together. And it's where a lot of people need to really look at what they eat, start eating healthy, and start experiencing other ethnic foods, because a lot of these ethnic foods are very beneficial to the health.
What would you recommend, like Indian food with turmeric or Chinese
that's
food?
it. But we here at Integrative Health Systems made a beautiful product, Canary Island Blend, and it was based on, we had the story of the pirates that were from Puerto Rico, but at the same time it used the natural fruits and vegetables of the islands, meaning canepa, acai. We were the first to put watermelon in a bottle and okra in a bottle, in a capsule outside of a pickle jar. And with the canepas, because it literally heals the intestinal colon and also the esophagus. If you have foreign material or any of that material in your body and you take or eat these fruits, you will cough and it will expel out.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's taking that knowledge. We really, because of my work in genetics and toxic exposures, trying to heal back the genes without doing any, I'm going to say traditional, which is now the gene therapies of injections and using viral protein envelopes and all those other big words. I personally wanted to create for Integrative Health Systems products that were based on ancient medicinals of antiquity, and at the same time had enough food sources of spices in it when times got rough. And it's very good, but it's taking all that knowledge and putting it into a little capsule, and that's what a lot of people. It's even when I grew up, probably as you grew up, meaning when you had a reference section in the library, you were always told that those books were guarded and, you could only loan it out for a couple hours or whatever it may be. Now you can buy them for a quarter on the library lot. Why are we getting rid of our texts so that you don't have those temples of knowledge, Because a lot of books aren't on an e-book or anything like that, especially the older ones.
Yeah, no,
ones out of a print where there's a lot of detail. Science at the turn of the century and in the years in the past, they went into detail and description. Now it's not as detailed.
Right. Well, one of the details that people need to know about is your website, because if they go there, they can see your products, and I would imagine that you would have protocols and all kinds of sort of kits for people to plug into.
And at the same time, if an individual's ill or anything, I do require, because I work directly with their physicians, a physician referral, and we set that up for the patients when it's a patient versus just a client or someone who's just asking about stuff. And that is located at StaningerReport.com, and I appreciate sharing that information with the listeners on your show.
So you are working with Michael on his little blooming network that he's got going, and of course one of the issues that he's been on the front lines and in trenches with is this blue plague down in the Gulf of Mexico, and he's done stellar work with this. And I'm curious. I'd love to get your take on the blue plague, and again, can your work and some of the things that you're involved in, can it help the people down in the Gulf Coast with their symptoms?
Definitely, but one has to remember this is just what happened, like with the Kuwaiti fires at the end of Desert Storm, which became Desert Shield, and the thing is, those residues, those sources are still down there. They're in the water. They're in the sand. If you're still in that source of contamination and you still have it in your body, you need to get it out, but you also need to clean up the area. And I know there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of things going on down there, especially when I was on one of his shows with Michael Edward. The first time he mentioned to me that there was approximately documented 30 miscarriages or spontaneous abortions from conception that occurred in that area from individuals that live in that area. And that basically can be lack of oxygen because the pollutant is in the body.
Right.
So it's taking, knowing the history of what those, it's not just the oils, because people have to remember whenever you're working with oil or rigging of that nature, they are always looking for leaks in the pipes, and there may be a history of using norms, radioactive materials to look for leaks in that area, and also the pollution, and then whatever was used to seal it up, like bacteria, etc.
Right.
Or plastics,
Yeah.
But there's multiple things that can be done, and it's looking at what is happening to the body systemically. We also created what we call a detox patch, which we put it on the person. It absorbs the sweat, and then we have it analyzed to determine in gross proportions what you could have been exposed to, So that helps. But all of this information is coming together, and it will be beneficial for humanity.
And what would you share with people on the West Coast, where I live, and where the water in the town that I live in has been tested for levels of cesium, and believe it or not, it's in there, and it's I think it's 0.5% or something like that. But here in California and really throughout a lot of the upper part of the United States, even as far as ways Massachusetts, we're starting to show the effects of Fukushima
Right.
in our environment. What would you suggest to people that want to, try to stay healthy through
Right.
this catastrophe?
Right. Dr. Benjamin Coldezon, Dr. Janet Hull, Hull, and myself wrote a position paper called Barefoot Radiation Guide. This was basically for someone that may not have the finances to buy a lot of kelp or other types of nutritional supplements, but to have a good balanced diet and look at that resources. And there's a website, blog, which is the barefootradiationguide.com they can look at. And I love sea vegetables, kelps, etc. this way, so if you were fortunate to get it before any of this incident occurred and basically hoard it, then you'd have a good source. But we have to realize this. It is something that is not going away, and we're looking at cesium, radioactive iodine-131, and a number of other radioactive nucleotides. But there's also plutonium involved, and that has a half-life of 26,000 years, and it's not going to go away very fast. So the whole thing, as I've told individuals, is stay as healthy as you can. If you experience bruising, bleeding of the gums, make sure you take your vitamin C, because it is needed. You're going to have to keep certain supplements available or certain remedies available so that you do not have to succumb to the ill health effects of what radiation exposure does. And also radiation exposure, key radiation, but as compared to the Morgellons or anything along that nature, which the Russians did a beautiful position paper on nano silicon and with radioactive particle, where if that nanosilicon was in the body, the radioactive particle stayed in the body. In other words, if you have a plastomer or you have a crystal or something where it is encapsulated or caught these radioactive nucleotides, it stays and it radiates out versus it doesn't go through the body like it normally would go through the body or just touch the surface.
Right.
So that's going to be a whole other effect. And the thing is, radiation and chemicals were always the number one thing to cause mutation, but primarily mutations in our bacterial flora in our body, so that then it cut off different enzymes and different reactions within our body so that we did not have function of those types of protective mechanisms.
Yep. And this is all coming to a head from a lot of different directions. And I tell folks that it's a real commitment to be on this planet now. I mean, if you want to stay here, you've got to take care of your body, and you also have to have the right mindset to get through this.
Right.
And why don't we use that as a segue to your book?
I appreciate that, because it's very true. We do not want to leave our listeners in a thing of fear, hopelessness, or anything. And Robert is right in what he's saying and what I'm saying. What we're saying is get past that fear. If it's where, hey, you're hopeless, you can't do any of this, but you have within your heart the ability to do anything you want to do. And the mind and the heart, when they become one, can move mountains.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Portals to Destiny. It's a smart little book. It's potent, and it has some wonderful imagery by Rick Dubov. Can you talk about how you met Rick and his art and how you decided to collaborate on this book?
Yes. Rick came to me at one time as a patient. We had a mutual colleague who passed away recently, within the last 2 years, Dr. George Chicard III. He was a holistic dentist in Beverly Hills, and he was in the office one time when I came in from Florida to meet with Dr. Chicard on toxicology stuff, and he met me, and he remembered that I was a toxicologist. And he had some things happen with a gland within his parotid gland that swelled up, and he went to his Oriental medicine doctor and said, well, you have to do this and that. And he goes, no, I need a toxicologist. And that's how we met again. And then when I came out to California, starting our businesses and stuff, I had the opportunity to see his art, and he was so gracious in putting the red portal and several of the portals here when we opened our office in Larchmont. Mm-hmm. And so they've always been here in the office on show for the patients or whoever comes in. And then I said, I need to have a book that tells what the story is with each one of these portals. And that's what I did 3 years ago. He and I collaborated. And it took us that long a time to find a publisher, which was Zulon Press, to print it in color. Mm-hmm. Because this particular book, audience, even though it's small and mighty like the mighty Chihuahua, it is very powerful. These words that are in it, I wrote it in an hour and a half. My business partner, Roberto Matucci, was sitting there while I was typing on the word process, or the computer rather, and it was divinely inspired. I'd look at the portals because I had a mini version of them, and I expressed what it was that I heard within my heart and my mind. And the thing is that when you read this aloud, it stimulates your DNA, just as we've had our ARC and different machines do. But what I'm saying is this does it within yourself so that then you become the antenna so that you can receive the blessings that occur. Even just like you said at the beginning of the show, if you've read the book totally through aloud, Robert, it'd be interesting to see what happens in 24 hours with your donations or anything like that.
Okay.
It'd be interesting. When I was on the show of our first premiere on Wednesday, I was telling how 4 people read it, and they all got a letter from the IRS saying that they were entitled to a refund, but it was like 2005, 2009. But I want to add to the list 5 people, because yesterday I got a letter from the IRS that I'm entitled to a refund too for 2010. So I tell you, we just keep reading it, and things happen in a good way. It's time to get out of fear. Enough is enough, and start healing within. Because once you heal, whatever your emotions, your physical, the pollution within the body distorts everything. Yeah. The cell signaling, everything, and it is the seedlings of disease. But the thing is, once you get past all that, you can receive many, many gifts that have always been there, but couldn't make the right landing, as I call it, because the coordination was wrong. The coordinates were wrong,
Right. Well, you have such a wonderful voice. How would you feel about reading one of the excerpts from the book?
I would love to. Which, do you have a favorite?
Well, I don't know. Why don't you, how about let's see, how about the Black Indigo portal? How about that one?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is nice. Let me,
okay.
I've got a book here, so I'm, okay. Okay. Our audience, I hope you enjoy this. And thank you, Robert. I am the Black Indigo portal. I am the Black Indigo portal, the portal to the beginning of mankind's ancestors' lives on Earth. See the green, the verde of life's creation. The shimmer of gold is all of my ancestors and me as we go through life together as the greater one and the one. I am the portal that brings you into being to become one with yourself and your ancestors. I do not care who you were or what you will be. All you have to know is that you are you and I am you. I have been with you as a single shimmer in the evening sky, and I will go with you always throughout your time on Earth. I will be there in the beginning and at the end of your life. For I am you and you are me, no matter how odd it seems. It is the truth you seek. Open my portal to become the true you and the one who only seeks the truth of all beings, all knowing, and all the heavens.
Well, that is wonderful.
Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. And it goes with, if people, I've got a copy. I was reading along with you while you were reading that, and there's a portal that's right next to it. It's a lovely image, a mysterious image. It's many, and the thing about these paintings, and I can tell even on the kind of the reprint here on the page, is that these paintings have lots of layers, and if you really focus on them and really begin to kind of go into these paintings, there's a lot happening in these paintings.
Right. There's a lot of other images, a lot of detail, and I know Rick Dubov, he worked very hard on these paintings. But at the same time, I was told years ago as a young lady that many times when you're doing art and painting, the spirits or your ancestors are around you, so they're always trying to get messages through. So you can see them through the images. We've even done, meaning it's very hard to do the red portal because the red portal is larger than the other portals that are in our office. The red portal is approximately 6 foot tall, long. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm trying to say, and it's solid wood. It's like a wood door, wooden door. So it's very hard to turn it upside down. But if anyone ever purchases the book, Portals to Destiny, and you turn it upside down on the front cover, you can see so many different images, and at the same time you can see images within images, which I like to pick them out and, do you see this or do I see this? It's like having a highlight magazine, when you were a kid.
Yep. Yeah. The red portal has a lot of sexual energy. I have to say that.
Oh, really? Well, it's based on the human being.
Yeah. No, it's a very passionate sort of, I don't know, tableau, and you can actually see, at least I can, you can see a couple right in the center of that portal embracing one another. I don't know if you picked that up, but to me, and when I say sexual, I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I mean in a very healthy and vibrant and passionate.
Right, in a balanced way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how long has this book been out?
It's literally been out just over 2 weeks. And you're at the beginning.
I'm at the beginning. I'm at the front of the wave. So, what's besides the fact that people are experiencing some very cool things around reading it, what's been some of the feedback that you've gotten from some other folks?
I've gotten people that have been very sick, meaning chronic disease, arthritis, Lyme disease, but meaning long term. I'm talking years, like 5, 10 years, etc. Even with the Morgellons, when they read it, a lot of the pollution starts to unwind and come out, because I feel that this book is a mechanism for the right vibration for within your own temple, which is your body. So you have your own acoustics within your body, because we're all different in shapes and sounds and backgrounds. And when you say it aloud, it starts clearing up in the normal blessings, which are health, wealth, and happiness. So if you need health, it starts working on that. But it's really within yourself, because you had the ability. It's just aligning. And this is what these paintings and the text of the book does. At least that's what I've looked at as an observation, is that it aligns mankind, the body, man, to the earth, and earth to the heaven, and then man to heaven. Once you align you as the individual self, then it aligns the other individuals within your family, your community, your relatives, your nation, etc. I feel that there will be many, many changes as a result of reading it and sharing this book throughout the world.
Well, that's awesome. And
pardon me for interrupting you,
go
Robin.
ahead. Go ahead.
But it's important, if it's a simple little book, no matter who was the author or who was the artist, that if it helps what's the situations that are happening now, it was divinely in order and divinely inspired. So it came from the heavens, whether it was beyond and beyond, you know?
Right. That's kind of where I was going to go with it. It's like, here we have this, this wonderful little book, and it's compact, and it's got some potent imagery and some timeless wisdom, and yeah, this is what the world needs now. We need more books like this. We need more experiences where we can move past these barriers of limitation and fear and a lot of the external forces that are tamping down on us. So kudos to you. In the back of the book, and there's also an order form for Rick's artwork and some of your botanical blends, and that's in the back. And you actually have a website, the Staninger Report, where people can read more about this as well. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. And those particular botanical blends, one which was named after sort of Rick and I, we shared something in common. Certain age groups tend to have had Latin when they had to go to college or to high school, so you could get into college, and we were one of those lucky groups. So I always had this nickname Hildegardicus, which was a Latin spin-off, and his was Rictorius. So I made this blend, which was Hildegardicus Rictorius, and that really cleans up the brain. But if you've never been open, like your pineal gland or anything, or getting that calcification off, it really helps with that brain focus and everything, and beautiful responses. If anyone had any debilitating disease of the brain or anything, it would be very interesting to see how it worked on that. Many people have lucid dreams and experience heightened ESP, as I would call it.
And then you also have the Grand Master blend.
Yes,
is that?
The Grand Master is really like an introduction, because Rick sees himself as his type as the Grand Master architect of creation, because he's creating all these paintings and even custom portals for individual needs. And in this, the Grand Master is really not only creating, but also the introduction to his next series, which are the New Royals, which you have the Empress of Commerce and all the other different, I'm going to call it guardians of those gateways that open the gates that go into the portals. So it's very unique and very nice, and needed at this time, because there are many artists that are blossoming and coming out, but each one has their own age and time of recognition.
Were you named after Hildegard von Bingen?
Possibly, and at the same time, a very famous singer that was at the turn of the century, Hildegarde.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my grandmother, Louisa, loved that name. So it had to be Hildegarde if it was a girl. If it was a boy, it would have been Wolfgang.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Have you ever gotten into her work? I mean,
yes, I was very fortunate in, it came about in the 1990s, her work, the end of the 80s, 90s. There was a professor that did a lot of the translations, and he sent me his early works prior to when it went to publishing in that. She did some phenomenal work and did her own battles.
Yeah, she was brilliant, and she was really, she was a pioneer in herbs and foods and sort of the medicinal quality of foods, when to eat certain foods at certain times, and she was way ahead of the curve.
Yes, she was definitely ahead of the curve, and she was also where she would blend different herbals and everything, meaning she was definitely ahead of the time, and she came from nobility, but when she was 8 years old, she was sickly, and her parents put her in a nunnery, the convent. And then she became, didn't she end up being Mother Superior too?
Yeah,
head of the convent.
Yeah, and she was I believe she was granted sainthood too, right? I mean, didn't she?
They were working on that. I did not know if it was canonized,
Okay.
but I knew that they were, it was in the process because
Okay.
you have to have two miracles happen.
Right. Well, I tell you, if Junipero Serra can be a saint, I mean, I think she's a shoo-in. So.
She was a good person.
So
And
let's
she
talk
did
about
beautiful for our listeners. If you ever look at her work or anything, she did the most beautiful icons and beautiful visions because she would get terrible headaches and see visions. And in those visions, she would paint it.
Yeah, she was a true Renaissance person. I mean, even though
she used the word verde, so I was very happy that when I put it into the book, it was like a reflection of her.
All right, so we got our Hildegarde connection going on here. That's good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your show. We have about 4 or 5 minutes before I have to transition to the next hour. Let's talk about your show on Michael's Network. What are some of the topics you're going to be covering, and some of the guests that you might be bringing into your realm there?
Yes. I'm focusing the show on different modalities that may be happening, and also observations within the environment. Example: our next show, which is going to have my guest host Sandra Lemire, is going to be on oxygen deficiency within the United States. Because a lot of the pollutions are now in the air, and have been in the air. At the same time, the mass population is having less oxygen in their body. Then I'm going to do catalytic altered water. Of course, I'm going to have a show on F.A.R. infrared, and also on certified Baltic amber and how it was used in history. From medicinal, mystic, and also in the science side of lasers with that. And also going into nanotechnology and other different types of terms over the summer. I plan to have the executive director, Richard Young, with the National Registry of Environmental Professionals, as a guest host, so that we can talk about nanotechnology and the impact on the environment, and a lot of other topics along that line.
Good stuff. And when is that happening? What day is that?
It happens on Wednesday from 1 to 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and then, as many of the audience may know, those shows are archived, so you can listen to them at your convenience.
Well, sounds good, and I'm glad you're working with Michael, and you guys are putting together a nice little team over there with what he's doing. So it's good stuff.
Well, I appreciate everything because it's like getting mentored. It's all coming about.
Good. Well, listen, I really want to thank you for coming on the show, and it's been a delight chatting with you, and maybe somewhere down the line we can do this again, and maybe with your next book we'll have you on and get an update from you.
I appreciate that very much, and thank you very much, and I look forward to listening to your next guest too, because it's really good information, okay?
Yeah, Michael's an interesting character, and I'm looking forward to it as well. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye, Dr.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So that was Dr. Hildegarde Staninger, and fascinating woman. I mean, talk about some brain power, huh? There's something happening there for sure, and she's got this book is interesting, Portals to Destiny. You can go to her website, and that's StaningerReport.com, and check it out, and you can get a sense of the book. It is not a very big book, but again, it's packed and concentrated and very focused. So you can find out more about the book there. In about 5 minutes or so, we're going to have Michael Lee Hill. He'll be coming on, and we're going to be talking about his life as a UFO chaser and an experiencer and as a musician. And that'll be in about 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to play a piece of music, and when I come back, I'm probably going to see Michael's number on the screen, hopefully. If not, well, I'll do my best to entertain you until he arrives. So you're listening to the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host. And what do we want to hear today? How about, just for old time's sake, let's do a little Reefer Man. Von Redden from the movie Reefer Madness. This is Reefer Man. I'll see you in about 3 minutes.